Chapter 593, Solution. The method for separating a rampager's mental corruption from a beyonder characteristic. The hermit Catlia shot a glance at the world and guessed that he might have obtained 1 to 2 beyonder characteristics that a rampager left behind. In addition, one of them likely involved the advancement characteristic for the world or someone close to him. This was a very easy inference, since if one didn't use a beyonder characteristic as the main ingredient of a potion, the mental corruption of a rampager in it didn't matter if it was made into a mystical item. At worst, the negative side effects would be extremely strong, making it equivalent to a sealed artifact, but that didn't mean that there was no way of using it. After adjusting his emotions, Klein controlled the world to answer hoarsely, "Write it on a piece of paper and pass it to me." With that said, Klein originally wished to encourage Little Sun for being a trustworthy person, but upon considering how the world's image was that of a gloomy and reserved person who didn't say anything else unless he had ulterior motives, he instantly fell into a slight dilemma. No, there's an ulterior motive. By letting Little Sun maintain his principles, it will make things a lot easier in the future. To put it simply, it will be easier to fleece him. Of course, I'll have to suffer the damage from his honesty and uprightness as a result. The world is an experienced and shrewd beyonder in the eyes of Miss Justice, Mr. Hanged Man, and the others. They likely wouldn't notice any problems. Klein's mind raced as he made the world let out a deep laugh. "You're really a trustworthy person. Your character is worthy of praise." The Hanged Man pricked up his brows and took the initiative to say to Derek, "I'm also interested in the knowledge regarding this. What can I use to trade for this information?" He planned to do the transaction if it wasn't too expensive, and he would give up if it exceeded his expectations. After all, he didn't have any use for it at the moment. Having been praised, Derek was still lost in his joy. After 2 seconds of thought, he said with abnormal sincerity, "Mr. Hanged Man, there's no need. You've often been giving me suggestions in the past when I was faced with trials. Just treat it as a way of showing my appreciation." If the world is a real person and was drinking, he definitely would have spewed out all the water in his mouth. Thankfully, he's neither drinking, nor is he real. Klein mustered all the beyonder powers of a clown to ensure his expression remained unchanged. The Hanged Man was briefly at a loss for words. The Sun's reply was completely out of his expectations. He had been traveling the seas for years and had experienced numerous encounters. His outlook on things was no longer that of black and white, with it mainly shades of gray. At this moment, he felt a baffling sense of guilt. "Your character is really worthy of praise." Alger quickly composed himself and praised Little Sun. "Don't copy what I said. Can't you use a different sentence?" The world glanced at the Hanged Man as the fool lamented how wily old foxes were all one and the same. "Dumbass, no, he's dumber than an ass, a dumb sheep." The moon Emlyn silently condemned the sun. From this morning, he had been filled with anticipation for this tarot gathering, as he had already advanced to Baron and had wished to find a chance to covertly flaunt himself. They might not be able to tell, apart from Mr. Fool. Mr. Hanged Man likely can guess it. I should do something later to let them know that I'm an honorable Lord Baron. Emlyn pondered as he listened. Towards Little Sun's words, Justice Audrey didn't feel any guilt or anger, as she knew very well that Mr. Hanged Man had been the one who had been guiding him every time. The others were only occasionally giving suggestions. This is the natural result of being a good person. I hope Mr. Hanged Man will become kinder in the future. She watched this scene in delight and didn't have the urge to spend money to obtain the method for separating the mental corruption from a beyonder characteristic. Derek quickly turned around and obtained Mr. Fool's approval and conjured 2 yellowish-brown goatskin parchments. Klein controlled the world and took a piece. He scanned it impatiently. There are 2 methods. The first is to use an item that can steal the beyonder powers of others. Extract the mental corruption left behind by a rampager and concoct the beyonder characteristic into a potion before the theft loses effect. This way, the mental corruption will have nowhere to go and will directly dissipate. The second is to hold a ritual and pray to one of the 2 mystical items in our City of Silver. Use its feedback to shatter the Beyonder characteristic and let the mental corruption expire. After that, the Beyonder characteristic will automatically gather together slowly. I only managed to obtain the corresponding rituals procedure and was unable to obtain the precise description of the item. Only the elders of the 6-member council have the right to know it and preside over such a ritual. The ritual's procedure is... Thoughts went through Klein's mind as he nearly forgot to control the dummy, the world. The first method is indeed something I never considered before. The sealed artifact, Blood Vessel Thief, behind the Channy's gate in Tinjin City is able to steal a target's Beyonder powers. By viewing a mental corruption as one of them, there's nothing wrong with this logic. But here comes the problem. The mental corruption inside the all-black eye isn't that of an ordinary Beyonder, but from the evil god, true creator. Regardless of if it's the Beyonder who's stealing the power or a mystical item of a similar trait, it will not be able to withstand such mental corruption. The former has a 100% chance of losing control, while the latter will directly be corrupted. In theory, I can sacrifice a similar mystical item and use it to replace the all-black eye's corruption. However, the timing has to be done perfectly without any errors. Otherwise, the two items might end up corrupted. Klein quickly analyzed the viability of the first option. As for the second option, it was similar to his and Edwina's previous guess. Only the details were somewhat different. The two powerful mystical items in the City of Silver are, at best, grade 0. Basically, it can't be a true god sequence 0 remains, otherwise they wouldn't be in such a pathetic state in the Forsaken Land of God. Therefore, does it mean that in order to shatter a Beyonder characteristic, one doesn't need a god's strength? It's enough to do it at the level of an angel. According to Little Sun, an angel is equivalent to a subsidiary god and can barely be considered a god. Yes, this matter can be verified. See, God Kalvatua only obtained a portion of Calamity Kohainam's characteristic. The remaining part is in the Book of Calamity. There might even be a third part. I wonder where it's hidden, since it helps this high elf, at the level of an angel, be able to resist death. In short, it can be seen that Kohainam's Beyonder characteristic was split into at least 2 parts. This is essentially the same as shattering a Beyonder characteristic. With all the evidence validating each other, I can make a preliminary conclusion that as long as the ritual is right, the feedback of a powerhouse at the angel level will be able to shatter a Beyonder characteristic. Then, here comes the problem. Where do I find an angel? Mr. Azek might be one at his peak, but he clearly hasn't recovered yet. As for saints, Snake of Fate, Will Ossipton, is only a fetus that hasn't even been born at the moment. Klein didn't spend too much time thinking, deciding to consider how to resolve the problem after the tarot gathering ended. With that, Alger quickly scanned the area and gained an understanding to a certain degree. Towards this, he had a theory. Getting the world to seek the method to separate the mental corruption from a Beyonder characteristic is likely a test Mr. Fool had given to his blessed. But does this imply that Mr. Fool's strength has only recovered to the level of a saint and not an angel? Otherwise, there's no need to go through such trouble. He could have directly removed it. How long has it been? It's just been 7 months, and Mr. Fool has already recovered to this extent. Right, he can already respond in place of Sea God Kalvatua. In another 1 to 2 years, he will likely be able to escape from his seal. Standing at the pinnacle as an angel, he will just be 1 step short of the ultimate goal. Ignoring the Hanged Man's reaction, Katlia looked at the Hanged Man and thought for a few seconds before chuckling. I'm not sure if those methods include one of the methods I know of. I can provide it for free. An Unshadowed of the Sun pathway can directly cleanse away the mental corruption in a Beyonder characteristic. Ma'am Hermit is a lot more proactive than the last time. Has she adjusted her state of mind, or does she have a motive? Or could it be that she's discovered that everyone else is a weakling, so there's no need to be too careful? Klein was first surprised with Katlia's attitude before being delighted that he had obtained a third method. It was from the Sun pathway, which the City of Silver lacked. But I can't find the help of an Unshadowed, although I do have an incomplete Unshadowed potion formula. He controlled the world to deliberate for a moment before having him turn to Katlia to laugh deeply. Thank you for your generosity, ma'am hermit. Following that, he switched to the demeanor of a salesman and asked Derek, do you know of a book named Grossel's Travels? Derek thought seriously before honestly shaking his head. No. No. Klein nearly failed to continue what he had to say, but thankfully, he steadied himself and let the world explain himself. It's a magical book that originates from dragons. Many of its owners have vanished. Originates from dragons? Audrey keenly noticed this important point as she asked with interest. Yes, a Beyonder plans on selling it for £8,000, the world said hoarsely. He didn't raise the price above Edwina's offer because he had yet to bargain with her. This was where he could profit on the trade. Besides, even if Edwina insisted on £8,000, he could still obtain Grossel's Travels and study it. It was worth the time he spent closing the deal. Audrey pursed her lips slightly as she darted her eyes around a little and cautiously asked, what's so magical about it? It requires further study. The world chose to be honest. I'll consider it. Audrey wasn't in a hurry to agree to it because £8,000 was also a considerable sum of money to her as well. Especially with her having just been reimbursed for lie, it was very difficult for her father, Earl Hall, to accept a book of unknown purpose. And if she were to rely on herself, it would take her at least 3 to 4 months. This was built on the premise that she had already purchased the psychiatrist's Beyonder characteristic for Susie. Hence, she turned to ask the world about the psychiatrist Beyonder characteristic. I mainly spent this week hunting Vice Admiral ailment and failed. I didn't find a grazing target to switch to. Klein was instantly left, somewhat embarrassed, feeling as though the world's shrewd image had been damaged.